Hi guys, Sci-Fi Recapped here. Before we start, warning. Spoilers ahead. Today, I'm gonna explain a 2020 American science fantasy movie called Artemis Fowl. The movie begins with a swarm of reporters waiting outside Fowl Manor while reporting about the Fowl who has just been arrested for his criminal activities. Not long after, an accomplice of Artemis Fowl named Mulch Diggums is taken into custody for helping Fowl. The scene moves to MI6 Red Fort interrogation facility where Mulch is being interrogated by the authorities. He reveals that he is just a tunneler, thus they should focus on arresting the talented young boy, Artemis Fowl, who is the brain of the operation. After that, he tells them the full story of Fowls, as well as a world of fairies that they discovered. Artemis Fowl is a 12-year-old talented and genius boy who lives in Ireland. It is revealed that Artemis managed to beat the European chess champion, win the architectural competition, and clone a goat in his childhood. Since he is a very genius boy, he is considered as different and doesn't get along with his friends at school. He has to meet the school counselor who assumes that Artemis acts out due to his mother's death or because of the burden of his father's name, Artemis Fowl, Sr., who is a renowned antique and rarities dealer. Feeling offended, he walks out of the room. Artemis enjoys his father's companion, who likes to tell stories about fairies, goblins, and other magical creatures. Unfortunately, Artemis Sr. often leaves his son alone due to his work demands, but this time he promises Artemis Jr. that his work is coming to an end. As he departs on his helicopter, he assures his son that he will keep him safe. The next day, the Fowl's butler, Domovoy, receives a call which tells him that Artemis Sr. has been kidnapped as the boat arrived with no passenger inside it. Meanwhile, Artemis wakes up and sees the news on the TV, accusing his father as a notorious criminal mastermind who is responsible for the disappearance of several antiques and rarities all across the world. Dom immediately drags the son from the TV, who still can't believe that the media labels his father as a criminal. A few moments later, Artemis receives a call from a mysterious figure called Opal Cowboy. She admits that she is the one who kidnapped his dad and urges Artemis to obtain an artifact called the Aculos in 3 days or he will kill the father. Left with no option, Dom takes Artemis to an underground workspace of his father and the generations before him where he discovers a lot of weird relics and notes about the fairies' world stored inside there. Based on the poem Artemis Sr. always reads before sleep, Artemis manages to find his dad's private journal. At the last page of the journal, a writing states something about a woman who threatens to kill him and his colleague Beechwood since she knows that they keep the Aculos, which has to be protected at all cost, even from the fairies themselves. Artemis starts to believe that the fairies exist. The scene moves to the center of the earth, where Haven City, the home of the fairies, is actually real and not a fairy tale. It is still revealed that the fairies are still struggling to find the Aculos. Turns out that Mulch is a dwarf and is sentenced to 400 years of hard labor due to committing a number of crimes. After that, he meets up with official Holly Short and asks her to help him out, but she refuses to do so. On the other side, Opal releases former fairy commander, Brian Cudgeon, from custody and reinstates him to the commander position while ordering him to bring the Aculos back to her before Artemis does. Commander Root addresses the issue about the missing Aculos, stating that the artifact must be recovered before it falls into the wrong hands. Officer Holly then approaches the commander, asking permission to go to Hill of Terra to investigate her father's disappearance, but Root denies the request. She advises the officer not to waste her life since she has a bright future ahead. Foley, fairy tech genius, suddenly spots an unidentified troll on the surface. Since all the field officers are occupied, Commander Root secretly orders Holly to go to the surface to identify the creature. She is then ejected through a volcano by using a capsule. Brian, who now acts as a mole for Opal, questions the commander's decision since Holly is Beechworth's daughter, a traitor who was accused of stealing the Aculos. Meanwhile on Earth, Dom recruits his niece, Juliet Butler, to assist Artemis in finding the Aculos. After spending 12 hours of thorough investigation, Artemis finds a lead at Hill of Terra and plans to capture a fairy that will be used to help him to understand the fairies' world. Holly flies to a party where she encounters a giant troll who attempts to eat a girl. She attacks the troll and saves the girl. Although fairies aren't allowed to use magic on humans, Holly disobeys the rule and treats the girl's wound with magic. Not long after, a time freeze capsule is deployed to prevent the troll from eating the humans. They get rid of the troll and wipe the human's mind before putting everything back to normal. On her way back, Holly takes a slight detour and heads to Hill of Terra, in an attempt to clear her father's name. Artemis continues reading his father's journal, learning that Beechwood deliberately handed over the Aculos to him to prevent the enemy, Opal, from gaining access to the fairy's strongest spell. Holly jumps into Dom's trap and gets captured. Foley tracks Holly's last location to Fowl Manor, and the commander immediately sends out every personnel to retrieve Holly before their identity is revealed. The next day, Holly awakens, finding himself locked up in a cage. Juliet and Artemis wear special glasses to prevent the fairy from controlling their mind. Artemis tries to negotiate with Holly, but she threatens him, saying that her people will come to rescue her and fairies don't negotiate. A time freeze capsule is deployed again while a horde of fairies' army, including Commander Root, arrive at Fowl Manor. Artemis changes his outfit and then shows up with Dom. They are prepared and fight several fairies soldiers with Holly's weapon. Dom manages to shoot the time freeze capsule, destabilizing the time freeze. Root decides to make her way toward the house to negotiate with Artemis. He welcomes her, offering to free Holly in exchange for the Aculos. After the negotiation, Artemis talks to Holly, who reveals that Benchwood was her father and their fathers worked together to protect the Aculos, but Benchwood was framed as the traitor to the fairies. Meanwhile, Opal reveals his plan to rule both humans and fairies' world with the Aculos since they are incapable of friendship and coexistence. She adds that he will wipe out all of mankind and restore fairies to their rightful place. Since the fairies are not allowed to infiltrate the house, Commander Root decides to release Mulch from custody, who likes to argue and fight with the goblins, whose skin is fire resistant, in the cell. Mulch immediately gets transferred to the surface. Root offers to lighten his sentence if Mulch agrees to help her by digging his way into the Fowl Manor and retrieving Holly. He agrees to the offer and suddenly transforms into a big-mouthed dwarf before digging into the house. Upon arrival, Mulch, whose eyes are installed with a camera and X-ray scanner, manages to find the Aculos hidden inside a safe that is kept behind a picture of Artemis Sr. Artemis somehow lets him open it and retrieve the artifact as it is still part of the plan while he finally decides to release Holly, offering her to work with him. As soon as Mulch opens the safe, Artemis and Holly confront him and attempt to hide the Aculos from the fairies. However, they have seen it through Mulch's eye. Cudgeon immediately informs Opal about the discovery and she orders him to intervene. He gathers the fairies' army while dismissing Commander Root from her duty. He then sends the captured huge troll, who is injected with a potion to make him stronger and angrier, to break into the house. Artemis teams up with Dom, Juliet, Holly, and Mulch to protect the Aculos and fight the enraged troll. Mulch decides to swallow the Aculos where Dom and the others attempt to distract the monster. After a long and exhausting fight, they manage to trap the troll by tangling it in a chandelier. However, the monster falls down in the direction of Artemis, but Dom pushes him out, causing him to be hit by the troll's huge body instead. The captain orders his men to restore Holly's magic, allowing him to revive Dom from his death. Meanwhile, the time freeze is collapsing, causing a lot of fairies to get thrown around and forcing them to retreat from Fowl Manor. The time freeze capsule eventually explodes and everything goes back to normal. Realizing that her plan is falling apart, Opal decides to kill Artemis Sr. with the dark magic. With the Aculos in their possession, Artemis urges Holly to activate its magic spell since no human can wield it. They officially become friends and the officer manages to create a portal to rescue Artemis Sr. from Opal's hideout before getting consumed by the dark magic. Artemis finds his father waiting inside his underground workspace where he reveals to Holly that her dad gave his life to protect the Aculos. He then gives a list of Opal's accomplices to Holly, hoping that she wants to investigate it and capture them. The officer brings the Aculos back to Haven City where Commander Root stores it inside a safe place. She conducts an investigation to seek out Opal and her accomplices. Everyone in the army congratulates Holly for her dedication and hard work. Meanwhile, Artemis personally calls Opal, threatening her that he will go after her. After that, he and his dad depart with a helicopter, going to finish some business. At this point, Mulch finishes his investigation and still refuses to help them apprehend Artemis Fowls. Not long after, he reveals that he is actually a dwarf and has been swallowing a tracking device, allowing the Fowls to locate him and rescue him from the facility. They then fly away and are ready for the new challenges ahead. Subscribe to watch more videos like this, turn on notifications, and leave a like to help the channel out. Thank you for watching.